Good afternoon, everyone. And a very happy new year to everyone watching as well. Welcome back to the Firestorm streams. This is my first of the new year, and we are going to be continuing with our A to Z of sculpting in ZBrush, and we are now up to the letter D. So we're going to be creating a dodo. They're one of my favorite animals because I just think they look so ridiculous. So this is what we're going to be creating today, folks. We're going to be creating ourselves a dodo. Now, as always, the reference that we're going to be using today, most of it will be off screen, but I have found this image here, which is going to allow us to give everyone an idea of what a dodo looks like if you're not actually aware of it. And you can find this image over on Pixabay, where it's a royalty-free image. All right, so we're going to let everybody just come into the stream a little bit more, see if we get a few more numbers before we get started, and we'll see how we go. But for anyone that is here, feel free to shout out in the chat, say hi, let us know how your time over the holidays was. Did you have a good new year? That type of thing. Hey, Firestorm, thank you. How are we doing? Okay, we've got about 20 folks in the chat here. So once again, welcome everyone to this Firestorm stream, my first of the new year. It's really great to have you all here. Happy New Year to you all. I really hope that your start to 2026 has been a productive and fun one. Okay. All right, folks. So like I said, we're continuing our A to Z in ZBrush series, and we're going to be creating a dodo today. I'd like to see if I can get as much done as possible today so that we can move on to the next letter. Try and keep some momentum going, but we'll just see what happens. Because once again, for anyone who's new here, the whole concept of this series is that we don't do much reference, okay? We don't do much research or prep prior to starting this. So essentially we have a bunch of images, we have our subject, and we start sculpting from scratch, all right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dodo and I'm going to move it over to the left here. And I might actually just flip it, just to make it a bit easier for people to see. All right. Okay, let's just pop it in here. Wow, we have a follower already. Peter, thank you very much for the follow. Oh, it's Peter Ocampo. Excellent. Oh, he subscribed. Not a follow, it's a subscription. Thank you for the subscription. Okay, folks. Now, I'm also going to point something out, is that if you ever see me just popping down to the left-hand side here, if you see me popping down and looking to the side of the monitor, it's simply because I've lost where my keyboard is. My keyboard sits just underneath my Cintiq, and it can get a little bit lost sometimes. Anyone who works with a Cintiq will probably know this issue. I know it's a massive first world issue. Oh dear, I can't find my keyboard under my Cintiq, but it's where we're at. All right, folks, as always, please let me know if you can hear me okay, if the audio's come through nice and clear before we get going. And oh, hey Madik, thanks for joining. Good. Glad to have you here. All right. Okay, folks, let's get started. Now, we're not going to be at 100%. I have the same issue, but I've gotten used to it. Yep. The issue with a keyboard under a drawing tablet. Okay, folks. So we're just going to be kind of approaching this in the usual way. So for anyone who's been here before, this might be a little bit boring. Apologies. But if anyone who is new, we're going to be going through my usual process of creating a creature. Okay, and we're going to be starting everything with Z-spheres. However, what we will do is we're only going to use Z-spheres to block out the main forms, i.e. the skeleton. Okay, so and then what we'll do is we'll add any other extra things like the wings, etc. We'll do them separately. So we're not going to actually approach this the way we have in previous streams. We're going to try and simplify things a little bit more. So we're going to start off with a Z-sphere. Now, one thing you'll have to be aware is that you cannot change the shape of a Z-sphere. It has to stay as an actual sphere, all right? So to go into depth, to go into a bit more depth with a Z-sphere, let me show you how these things technically are constructed between a standard Z-sphere and when we preview it as a mesh. Now, if I tap the A key when I have a Z-sphere on my screen, you'll see that it creates this very dense Dynamesh sphere, okay? If I go into the adaptive skin options here, I can change this by reducing the Dynamesh resolution, and then if I refresh the sphere here, you'll see that now we're just dealing with polygons, and we can adjust the density as needed as well, all right? So say I wanted to start creating a bit more of a shape here, akin to the more egg shape of the Dodo's body. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on double here. I'm going to make sure that I'm in my draw mode, make sure I have symmetry on, and I'm going to create a new Z-sphere right in the middle of this one here. So I'm going to drag this out. So now, if I tap A, you'll sometimes see we get issues like this. This can happen, so I'm just going to undo that. And let's see if we can get this to... That's what we wanted. Okay. So as I add a Z-sphere to the front of my mesh, you can see that instead of a sphere, we're now getting a much longer pill shape. So if I go to the back and place one here as well, you'll now start to see the shape that we're starting to get. So if we scale this up, we'll start to get a shape like this. So if we scale these down, we can start to create more of the shape that we might want for our Dodo, okay? And you may also get some issues depending on the scale of each one, so you might just have to play around with it until you get the look that you want, okay? Now, I have other reference on my other screen as well for creating this Dodo. I've got a really great one, which is a more up-to-date scientific illustration of the Dodo. Because for anyone who's unaware, the Dodo went extinct a long time ago. And it's been extinct for about 300 years. It's a long time. So, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to pop in a few more sections here. This is going to be the back of the skull, and again, we're going to do the head slightly differently here. We're going to build the head up separately, but I want to make sure that I have where the head's actually going to go. There we go. Oops. There we go. R.I.P. Dodo, as my sanity. First day back, I'll do that. The first day back always does that. Okay. So, a few more changes now. There we go. Go back into the draw mode. Make sure we have symmetry on. And we can start to draw out the legs. So I'm going to start with where the hip would be at the back, like so. And then I will draw out the top, the kind of humerus bone here. Now, ZBrush has been a little bit problematic. There we go. Draw out our next section. And I promise, folks, what we'll do next time, I will look at different ways we can approach creating creatures. So as not to bore everybody. with the same technique over and over again. Bring this into here and then draw out another one. And what we'll probably do here is, unlike what we've done in the past, what's this? Let's track which ones I posted. Great start. Drowning in social media posts. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that first day back, just trying to kind of get everything kind of fired out. So something we haven't done in the past with these creatures is done any kind of detailed work on the feet with the Z-sphere. We're going to change that for this version because we're dealing with a bird. So we have a little bit more leeway when it comes to kind of creating out these extra parts. We get the toes in. That looks about right. And as always, we're going to append a cube or any shape you want to act as your file name. Always a good idea to do this in ZBrush. And generally what I've started doing in recent years is just using it as a base for my character to give myself a ground plane of sorts. Let me check. So something I discovered when I was looking up some reference for this creature is that they used to think dodos were quite chunky, you know, very round, essentially just like a ball with a head on it. And in recent years, they've reassessed the science around them, and that is not the case. They were much. They believe now that dodos were actually quite well suited for their environment. This is the thing. There's a bit of a myth that dodos were stupid because they were made extinct, but they were because they were made extinct so quickly. But it's more to do with the fact that they had no natural predators. That's the theory anyway. They didn't have any natural predators, so when humans showed up, they had no reason to fear them. And unfortunately, it didn't work out well for them. Let's put it that way. That looks about, maybe make the neck a little bit longer. And I think I'm going to make the neck a little bit thinner as well. That looks about right. So what I've done here, folks, is we're not actually going to see this section here of the leg, okay? Because that's actually going to be under a lot of muscle. But this is the bone structure of the skeleton of the dodo. And you can see that we're going to deal with something that looks a bit like this. Now, there's a lot of mess going on in here. That's okay. Don't worry about that if that happens with your Z-spheres, because remember that all you're doing at this stage is blocking out the character. You're not actually trying to make a final mesh here, and all of this can be easily fixed. When I first started using Z-spheres and working in ZBrush, I used to try and make sure everything was completely perfect at every stage of the production or of my sculpt. And then over time, I realized that I don't need to be as precious as that with what I'm doing, because it can all be fixed. It can all be fixed. There we go. All right. Now, what I'm going to try and do here, let's see if the Z-sphere is actually going to do what I want. Yeah, there we go. So this is an old trick using Z-spheres. Let me show you the wireframe. This is something I used to do all the time with Z-spheres when I was creating human characters, is that you could essentially create a shape like this, and if you had a Z-sphere on the opposite end, and when you went into the, if we move this up like so, I know this will look weird, I'll undo this in a second, but what you could do here is by positioning the Z-spheres like this, you could end up creating some edge looping, like old school kind of edge looping around a model so that it was a bit easier to work with. So depending on how you would arrange your Z-spheres, you could end up with better edge flow. But that's not actually important anymore because we can use Z-remesher, we can manually, and we can also manually retopologize in ZBrush. So let's just undo that and get this back to looking like a dodo. There we go. But I think I am going to keep, am I going to keep that bit? No, we'll get rid of that. Okay. All right, folks, enough dodoing around. Let's get stuck into actually doing this. So as always, I'm going to duplicate this. So I've always got as, actually we don't need to duplicate the Z-sphere, my apologies. That was a mistake on my part. What we're going to do is we're going to go down to adaptive skin. I'm going to leave everything at the settings I have, which is density at 2 with the Dynamesh resolution down to 0. And I've also lowered the radial twist of them, just to keep it a bit cleaner. I'm going to hit make adaptive skin. And now, in my tool palette, I've got the skinned version of it. So I'll append that into my project. And I'm going to pop the original Z-sphere into a folder. And I'll just call that archive. No, completely misspelled that. There we go. How are we doing? Okay. And now we can immediately jump in and start cleaning up some of the forms that got a little bit waylaid. So just using the move brushes and the smooth brush. Again, I'm not too worried about this section here. Don't worry about that. That's essentially just acting as the underlying bones. We will clean it up shortly. Let me just check the reference here. Let me see. Yeah, that looks about right. Hey, Polly. Okay, so let's just check the 3/4. Most of the reference images that you find of dodos is reconstructions. So taxidermied reconstructions, models, and illustrations, because obviously there's no photography of dodos. There's a couple of life specimens. There's a head and a foot that they have that are kind of preserved, so we know what the overall shape of the creature looks like, of the head. That's how we know that it's got a bald face. Sorry folks, we're supposed to be sculpting, not actually talking about the dodo, but unfortunately, you know, I fell down an internet hole when I was looking for reference images. So do tell me, folks, let me know how your New Year was. I want to know. I want to know if you remember your New Year, or if you even bothered celebrating, because I know not a lot of people don't. Mine was good. It was a quiet one, but it was a good one. Thank you. Thanks. It was all good. So. All right, we're going to jump straight in now to what's good. How are you? Love the energy. Thanks very much, Murray. Appreciate that. Okay, So we're going to jump straight into actually blocking out and adding other elements of the creature. So we're going to go into our brush menu here, just going to tap B. I'm going to hit the I key on the keyboard, if I can find it. There it is. And I'm going to select my insert mesh primitives. Okay, so I can just hit the T key to bring that up. So if you are new to ZBrush and you want to access a brush quickly, you can actually memorize a shortcut key, kind of a succession of shortcut keys. So if you hit B to bring up the brush menu, if you want the move brush, you can tap M. And then if you want a specific move brush, say the standard one, you tap V. So it's B, M, V for your move brush and so forth. Okay. IMM primitives. What's this? Mine was chill, went to mate's place, played games, saw the fireworks over London, went home. That sounds pretty good to me. I had heard that the fireworks over London were pretty impressive. So what I've just done there, folks, is when I've tried to apply one of these insert mesh brushes, I'm getting an error at the top. And that's just ZBrush telling me that, oh, by the way, you can't do this because you've got subdivision surfaces. So in order to fix that, we have to go to our mesh, delete the lower subdivs so that we can actually draw on our mesh. What's this? I do like the shortcut combo when you used to use ZBrush. Ah, do you not use ZBrush that often anymore, Polly? So what I'm doing here is I'm going to draw out some saddlebags for the side of the legs, and what I mean by this is we're just going to turn these into drumsticks for the character. So this is going to act as the meat of the leg. This is, you know, this is the part that probably made it extinct. This is why it was extinct, because they saw it and went, yeah, that'll be tasty. So and then what we can do is we can take the red section here and we're going to mask it out, invert it, and then we can just move this back into place. Okay. Excellent. I'm going to hide my base here for the time being. Thick thighs, your demise. I like that, that's funny. What's this? Was mostly for uni and a little afterwards. Ah, okay, cool. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to slowly smooth out, just trying to bring some of the toes to a bit of a point. I'm just going to bring up the reference here actually. I do wish I could share some of the reference that I found for this, but it's just not possible, unfortunately, folks. But what we will do here is I'm going to take the green section and we're going to inflate this a little bit. Oh, there we go. Grab the thighs. And using the inflate brush, we're going to create an overlap here. And that's going to allow me to cut the legs off. And this is very early on, obviously, but we're going to cut the legs off because we can approach these as a separate part of our mesh. Like so. So I'm going to mask them out. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Mask them out, invert the mask, and I'm going to choose split unmasked points. So that's going to chop the legs off. Then I'm just going to hit close holes, and now I have the legs separated. and turn them back on. And the reason I've done this is going to allow me to have a lot more control over the legs themselves. You can see that it's looking a little bit squint here with the shape. So let's see if we can clean this up a bit. Okay. What will we do? We're going to Dynamesh them. So we'll Dynamesh them together. And then we can just start to clean up the legs a bit. Keeping an eye on my reference, what I've missed here is I need to clean up some of the geometry first. So this section of the leg needs to be straighter. And we could have done that at the Dynamesh stage, but doing it here at the low resolution is going to be far more effective. And we'll Dynamesh again, but we're going to go for a low resolution here. There we go. Do a mirror and weld, make sure everything's the way it should be. And then going to trim the bottom of the feet just to flatten them out. And I'm doing this by moving my gizmo to the bottom. So I've got my pivot flat near where the feet are, holding down control and then just scaling. I'm going to scale up and that's going to flatten the bottom of the feet. And that's just to allow me to start rearranging the shape of the feet a little bit more. Gives me more geometry to play with. They've got quite large legs actually. They do have a lot of meat on the bone, shall we say. Just looking at some of the reconstructions here. And what you can do as well, if you are interested, is check out the Natural History Museum and website, and just search for Dodo, because that's where a lot of this stuff is kept. And remember, for anyone again who is who's new to this series, we don't generally aim to finish the models. We're essentially doing sketches of these creatures and these characters, and then the plan is that we're going to hold a vote on the Firestorm Discord to see which ones people would like to see taken further into more finished models. So make sure that you're following us over on Discord and on Instagram to make sure you don't miss that. Just check, make sure this is looking okay. Yeah, that's looking good. They're starting to come together, so we need to get some claws on there. So let's get some claws on the toes. I think what we'll do here is, yeah, I'm going to append go up to macro, append a Q cube. I'm going to go into my Z modeler tool, make a quick change to the topology of the cube, and then smooth it once, maybe twice. That should be fine. We're then going to, well, first of all, I'm going to delete the lower subdivs, and then we're going to delete the bottom half, close the hole, mask off one section, just move that up, scale it down as we go. Doesn't need to be as large as that, just taking a look at the, there we go. We're going to scale it down non-uniformly, so we get something like this. I know obviously we've got a really strange taper here, but we're going to fix that. Again, grabbing the Z-modeler tool here, just going to insert a few edge loops, and now making sure that we have symmetry on, I can start to reshape this claw. I'm going to show you exactly why in a second, why I tend to use the Q-cube for this. It's specifically to do with how the polygroups are automatically made to make my life a bit easier. So I'm just going to shorten that, delete hidden. And now, if I hold down Control Shift, make sure that I have select rectangle selected or highlighted. And I'm going to hold down Control Shift and click. I'm going to turn on double so you can see this, and it's going to only select this poly group here, which is on the top and the bottom of the claw. Now if I do an auto groups, I can only select the bottom one. I'm going to mask it out, invert it, and I'm going to move it up like so. And now, if I smooth it out a little bit, it's a really nice and quick way to create a little bit of a hollow in your claw or fingernail. Okay. Grab the Z-modeler again, just give ourselves a few more loops to work with, go into deformation, and we're just going to do a quick polish. That might be a bit too much, maybe I relax. There we go, polish by feature, that's what I want. And then grabbing the move brush and just readjusting. Now we've used things like the stager a lot in previous streams, but today I'm just going to wing it and hope for the best. I'm going to start off by placing this in the on the main toe, on the middle toe even. See if that looks somewhat like a toe. There we go. Yeah, it looks as though it needs to be a little bit bigger, so let's just scale that up, and we're going to fatten it as well. There we go. Just rotate it a little bit. So it needs to have a bit of clearance with the ground. So we need to bring our ground down because that's not in the right place. There we go. Excellent. So now I'm going to move this pivot back so that when I rotate it, it's a bit easier for me to place it. Okay. So now I'm going to hold down Control and move my gizmo to one side, and that's going to copy the claw, and I can scale it down to match the size of the other toe. That looks good to me. And again, I'm going to hold down, in fact, don't actually, you know what we're going to do this time? We're going to hold down Alt, move the pivot, and then I'm just going to duplicate it. Again, just to show you a different way to work. Now let me check the, yeah, these ones look like they're about the same size, so that means the toe on the inside here is probably a little bit too small, so we need to fix that. Let me just, it's getting a little bit hard to see this, folks, so bear with me. So let's go back to the toe here, grab our inflate brush, and we'll just inflate that a little bit. Now, we're dealing with really low resolutions here, so the quickest way to fix that would be just to give ourselves more geometry to work with, but we will get there. We'll get there shortly. Okay, I'm going to take this time to readjust the shape and size of the middle toe as well. It's a little bit bigger than the side ones, but not by much. So we want to try and keep that in mind. And then we have a final claw to create. Interesting. So we need to get rid of one of these. There we go. And we're just going to merge these down. And then I'm just going to control click, rotate that round, and then I'm going to delete these here. And that gives me the back claw. So as always, folks, if there's any kind of queries or questions about how I'm going about things, or if there's something that you missed, please feel free to fire a message into the chat. I'm more than happy to go over things again if needs be. Okay, so we'll grab the geometry for the back toe, clean that up as well. And there we go. Now a quick mirror. And we've got ourselves a pair of Dodo legs. And they should be more than sufficient for the time being, at least. Excellent. Okay. So we need to save because we actually haven't saved yet. Let me just quickly create a folder here, folks. Okay. Excuse me. Right. Okay. Let's get on to the rest of it. So we need to block out the wings. We need to give ourselves some wings. And let me just quickly check my brushes here. I do. Yeah, that's fine. It's in there. Good. Just making sure I had a certain brush loaded that hopefully will make this a little bit easier. I did not freeze to death off, but it was close. Ah, hey, CC. Good. That's good to know. It's one of those kind of key things. You don't want to be freezing to death at your office. That is not good. That would not be a good start back to the new year. Save me hot beverage. My hot beverage has gone cold, unfortunately, folks. It's very tepid at the moment. Okay, let's do a quick rename. A little bit of housekeeping. Claws, there we go. And now we're going to grab the feathers, or the I say the feathers, we're going to grab the wings and get them in place now. So again, we're going to go into our brush menu, grab our primitive brush and grab a polysphere. And simply drag these out. You can scale them in a bit. Actually, let's just turn on dynamic symmetry. That should help a bit. There we go. Just to kind of squeeze them down into the right shape. The wings on the Dodo are actually really small, and it's apparently primarily to do with the fact that, once again, they're flightless birds, for one thing, so they don't really need them. And again, that was due to the fact that all the food they needed was readily available to them on the ground, apparently. Don't take any of my my Dodo kind of, knowledge, as sacrosanct. They're also extinct, so they don't need them. That's a very good point. Marmaladen is raiding with a party of 3. Okay, thank you very much, Marmaladen, for the raid, and welcome to the party of 3, as you will now be called. Marmaladen, what a great name. Okay. So the version of I'm going with the more scientific, the most recent scientific illustration of the Dodo. So yeah, we are a party of 3. And I'm just making sure that that's all in the right place. Excellent. Okay. All right. Righty. Need to fix some of the chunkiness at the back here just to try and get the wing in. Let me see, really not getting this shape right. There we go. And it seems to kind of go up across the lap, like so, which we're going to have to obviously start to get a little bit of anatomy in shortly. And kind of just pop out like that. There we go. Firestorm. Oh, brilliant. Got a link and everything. Great. Thanks for that, Firestorm. Appreciate you putting that in there. And yeah, welcome to Marmaladen and the, just snooping your links. We are a party of 3. I love it. Okay. Let me just pull up a little bit more reference here, folks. I'm trying to get a little bit of a better angle on our Dodo. That's actually looking pretty close, I'm not going to lie. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is very quickly, we're going to be brave and we're going to bring everything together. So we're going to go into our gizmo, grab our gear icon. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to turn off symmetry for this. Always a good idea to, before you do a remesh by union, turn off your symmetry. I got to go lurk and eat some food. Good luck with the Dodo. Thank you very much, Marmaladen. Appreciate it. As I generally find that if you have symmetry on, it gets a bit confused. So I'm just going to do it that way. Then we can accept it and we'll turn our symmetry back on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to subdivide it once. In fact, you know what? Let's actually undo that. We'll subdivide it first and then we're going to, it might actually shout at me here. Yes. And then we'll delete one of our subdivisions and then we will do a remesh just to give ourselves a little bit more geometry across the board. And also stops that nasty kind of triangular creation going into the middle of our mesh, and that's something that I'm never a fan of doing. Even when I know I'm going to be replacing the model, I don't like having edges kind of terminate right down the center line of my model. And if you have that on your retopology, change it. There's not many things I would say that you should do, but that's definitely one of them, because it will make a mess of things. There are obviously some slight caveats, depending on if you're doing a very asymmetrical model and it's for game optimization, then you do sometimes have to, but otherwise you try to avoid it where you can. So now that I've done that, I'm going to grab my cleanup brush and my smooth brush, but I'm going to turn on Sculptress Pro here. And in Sculptress Pro, or with Sculptress Pro, it's going to allow me to blend. Let's turn symmetry back on, shall we? It's just going to let me blend these shapes together. And you can, of course, use Dynamesh for this, but doing it with the Sculptress Pro does allow you a little bit more control over where you're connecting it, because then you're only connecting it at certain parts. There we go. Then we can turn that off and we can do a bit of a smooth over the whole of the mesh. Do a little bit of reshaping. Okay, and now again, it seems a bit strange, but this is something I like to do kind of stage by stage, just so that I know that things are working before I go to Dynamesh, and then I can Dynamesh everything together. So I'm going to use the picker here, click and drag over to one of my blended areas, and that's going to give me a better indication of how much I need my or how high I need my resolution to be with my Dynamesh. So now when I tap Dynamesh, everything is connected together. So we've got a little bit of an issue here with a, you know what, I think we're actually going to move that for the time being, and I'll clean that up later. Try Dynameshing again. There we go. That's just going to give me a little bit more separation between the wing and the leg, and I can now get in there to sculpt as needed. Okay. Right, let's do a little smooth over all of our object using the trim dynamic and the smooth brush. Just reshaping some of these elements. Probably going to have to move the wing in once we're done with it, but I've left it out in a kind of A pose for the wing just to make things a bit easier for me to deal with. Because you remember when we were working on our chupacabra, we pointed out that we were working asymmetrically, which is something that's really good to do. It's a really good way to practice your sculpting. But sometimes when you're in a bit of a rush or you need to get something out, then it's not a good idea. You want to be able to use symmetry as well, okay? And that's what we're doing here. So just preparing the surface now before we start adding a little bit of extra anatomy. And it's really tricky when you're dealing with, or I've always found it tricky anyway, when I'm sculpting birds, because so much of them is made up of feathers. And if you've ever seen a bald parrot, that really shows you just how much the feather makes up of the of the form. So a lot of the time, with many birds, when you're sculpting form, you're really sculpting the shape that the feathers are making on top of that form. So it can be quite challenging. But don't give up if it is something that you're working on. Don't give up on it, because birds are awesome. I really like, I've always been a kind of fan of birds. One of my favourite animals. But never really sculpted many of them, which is quite good that I'm getting to do a dodo now. So visualize the bird cooked. Got it. You can do, yes. I mean, I was on the team. I was part of the team at DNEG when we when we created the Thunderbird for Fantastic Beasts, and that was a lot of fun to do. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed working on that. And who knows, that might have actually, it was kind of a bit of a dream come true. It was like, great, get to work on a really cool, big fantasy style bird. Among about another 15 people, I might add as well. Loads of us on that team. Okay. Right, let's take a bit of a look at the reference here. For a project like that, how do they split the team's workload? It depends. I mean, obviously, your traditional visual effects studio is department based, so you would have obviously, concept modeling, texturing, rigging, that type of thing. So generally, what would happen in that instance is that the asset team would first block out as quickly as possible a version of the character. And then once that was kind of approved early on, that would get sent over to rigging, texturing, and probably look dev as well. And a version of the model would get put together. So that we can kind of see how it all looks. And then obviously how it all looks together as one. And then it's going to go back for iterative changes. When I was at DNEG, DNEG used to use what was called a show-based format. So instead of a department that was working on multiple shows, such as, 2 different films, for example, and they were just kind of going through their day creating assets for those, each show would have its own specific team and then many departments within it. So in our case, for Fantastic Beasts, when we worked on the Thunderbird, there was a room with 10 of us in it and another room with about 5 of us in it. And in that room, there was a modeler, which was myself. There was a rigger, 2 riggers. There was a couple of groom artists for doing the feathers and things like that, plus a supervisor. So it became a kind of insulated team to then kind of work on that. And it was a really good way to work. But I will admit, department-based systems do work more efficiently for when a company has multiple shows on. So I can understand why that's the norm. Hopefully that answered the question. Come juggle feeding 7 blackbirds without them fighting with me. Yeah, blackbirds are, well, birds in general this time of year they're ravenous when they want fed. What's this? Do you find working in studios like that very slow? No, not at all. Not at all. Of all the studios I've worked in, I would never describe I'd never describe it as a slow paced job. there's a lot happening on a daily basis. Lots of changes, alterations, new assets to do, new people joining the team. Everything is kind of going at the same time. It's one of the reasons why it was actually so easy to do longer hours at these studios, because the day does not feel as long as a normal day. So that's how I would put it. So no, I think the only time it can feel a little bit slower is when there isn't a show on and you're kind of waiting around for your next show, and then you don't have much to do. So in most studios, what you'll end up doing is you'll train in between. So you'll use the in-house training tools to learn something new, or like maybe learn a proprietary tool, that type of thing. So it looks as though the tail is wrong. So the tail is actually, I've just noticed the tail is looking a little bit too chicken-like. So I need to fix this tail. There's a bunch of old images of the Dodo that have it having a kind of big fluffy tail, and it looks as though this more recent one is showing essentially a tailless bird, like short stubby tail like this. Because I know for artists, personal projects means you do all the parts yourself versus studio work, where you might be assigned one job. That's correct, Empress. That's correct. But again, I wouldn't say it's slow, because you normally, even though you're only doing one part of a model, once you're finished with it and you pass it on, there's generally something waiting for you to jump onto next, almost guaranteed. And you also have to remember is that because of the pace that everything's working at, and normally everything's working going on at the same time. So while you're modeling a new version of it, the look dev department or the texturing department are putting together new textures, and it's all happening at the same time. And it does require a lot of organization to make sure that that runs smoothly. And sometimes things will kind of go wrong, but that's just the nature of what we do. Things go wrong sometimes. But no, I've never really found myself, whenever I've been in a studio situation, I've never really found myself waiting for something to do. There was always something to do, which was always good. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just sketching out kind of a flow of where I think the feathers might go, or based on the reference. Just using some rough strokes with a brush. Let's get that a little bit more. It doesn't like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use one of my favorite brushes, and that would be Ian Robinson's clay brush. It's one of my favorites now. I just haven't put it into my my kind of presets directly in ZBrush yet. Oh, wait a minute, something's gone wrong. There we go, that's better. There we go. And then once we've kind of got that flow, so we know the flow of the feathers is going to kind of come down this way. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're at the end of our first hour, so as always, folks, we're going to do a little reminder for anyone who is, we have, however, dropped off. We don't have as many people watching now, so, but that's okay. Not bad for the first stream of the year. So, just going to very quickly dash in some of these shorter. There we go. Okay, let's see. I say that. I say okay in my head. I'm like, yeah, that'll do, pig, and then I stop. Also, yes, I use the. If anyone has ever seen the film Babe, I use that a lot when I'm to try and remind myself. It's like stop. It's like stop. It's like you've done enough, that'll do, pig. And then I keep working on it. It's one of those things. So that's looking okay for the back. And we could, of course, repeat this same effect here using Ian's brush. So I'll grab that brush and we can do it down the front as well. But I actually have a new brush that I want to test on the stream tonight. I've never used it before. So we're going to see how that goes. But I guess we need to give our Dodo a face. So let's first of all start by grabbing our damn standard and saving our file. And we're going to block out where the face is going to go, because the face that I want to do is a separate part. So I'm going to bring up the forehead a bit. What's this? Don't trust. There's about. Oh, right, cool. Okay. It says 8 on my side. So yes, folks, considering that we're now an hour in, what I generally like to do is just do a little reminder for anyone who is either new to the stream or who's just joined us on what it is we're doing. So we are continuing our A to Z of ZBrush, except we are working on a Dodo, because we are now at the letter D. I'm trying to kind of keep a bit more momentum now, trying to get through these faster, so that we can get as many done as possible. And as always, we're just sketching these out so that we can then hold a vote on the Firestorm Discord to find out which ones people might like to see worked up into final models. So make sure that you follow us on Discord so you don't miss that, if that's something you'd be interested in taking part in. So hopefully you can see here, folks, that I'm not just scribbling on the surface. I'm kind of dappling strokes into the surface here, just to kind of break up the surface a bit more for the feathers. Just looking at the reference here, actually I think we're going to have to bring the top of this in a bit, bring those legs in a bit more, and then cover that up with some fur. I keep saying fur, I meant to say form. And feathers as well. I've actually been sculpting quite a lot of hair and fur at the moment because of one of the characters I'm working on my personal stream. So and today's task was sculpting some miniatures for a company called Dark Fantastic Mills. So if you are into tabletop or anything like that, go and give them a look. I've sculpted a few of their environments for them, and the statues that they have over there. Okay. All right, this just looks hilarious. Okay, we'll do another save and then we're going to start building up our character's face and see how we do. So how do we want to approach this? What would be the best way? First of all, I'm going to flip this round. Seems finished to me. I thought so as well, Empress. I thought we could just leave it like this, and then, I mean, just draw a face on it, and then there we go. Ta-da! We have a Dodo, everyone. Yep, that's what almost 20 years of experience in the industry will give you, is this kind of talent. I mean, this talent doesn't just pop up overnight. Okay. Let's append. Actually, we're going to do the same again. We're going to go up to macro and we're going to append a Q cube. Grab our Z modeler. I'm just going to scale up the head here a bit. There we go, and just have this poking its head in from the side. We will grab our sphere here, and we're just going to, our cube, sorry, and we're going to remove all of those extra edge loops, and then we're going to subdivide it a couple of times. And I'm going to turn off the body and the legs and the claws and just work strictly on the head here. Honestly. It does look quite intimidating, doesn't it? So, let me see here. Okay. We're going to go into our primitives, and I'm going to grab the capsule. Oh, wait a minute, I need to delete my lower subdivs. Create the capsule. And block this out. There we go. And we're going to take this and we're going to taper it. We need some more edge loops. There we go. And we're going to stretch that out. Invert our mask so that we can start to reshape part of the mesh. And then I'm going to hide that like so. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift now, and watching any skill. The other thing as well to point out as well is that what I'm doing here, you could approach in as many different ways as you wanted. Okay, so don't worry about, you know, the kind of process I'm using. If you're not comfortable with it and you want to do something else, you can. Okay. I'm afraid you might be in a gang. You might be in a gang. Not sure what you mean by that, but oh, what have I done? There we go. I'm gonna have to step back here, folks, because I forgot to turn on symmetry. So we're just gonna step back. There we go. And I'm gonna grab this here and make sure symmetry's on. We're gonna grab our gizmo deformer, gonna go to taper, and we're gonna taper up the face. So once again, folks, we are doing things just in a different way, just to kind of keep things fresh and interesting. So I'm just approaching sculpting and modeling these, not necessarily in the way I would always do it, but in just a different way for the sake of the stream, because it makes it fun. And who knows, I might make some, well, I say might, I'm going to make massive mistakes as well, so that's part of the fun of it. Okay, so let's get the beak sorted now, because at the moment it does not look like a dodo yet. Symmetry keeps turning itself off. It's probably me actually. I think I keep selecting the wrong, hitting the wrong key. So we're going to block out the edge of the beak. You can see that the beak overhangs quite considerably. So with that in mind, I'm going to hold down Control Shift and choose my select lasso so that I can hide the bottom section like that. Okay. Then I can hit Control W so that I now have a separate polygroup. Have I done? Oh, I've done the wrong bit. I told you I would make a mistake. So we'll just have to grab this and rotate it. There we go. And now we'll start bringing this together like so. So what I'm also going to do here, folks, is that you'll see that with this polygroup, it lines up with this edge loop here. Now I could tell you that that was completely on purpose, but it wasn't. It was just a happy accident. And anyone who has watched my personal stream knows how much we like happy accidents. And for those of you not in the know, that was a Bob Ross reference. Okay. Nothing like being a happy. That was that is brutal, Empress. That was brutal. I love it. That was hilarious. Okay, let's just, you know what, I'm just going to make sure symmetry's on. We're just going to move these edge loops up like so, and the mouth is going to come in just on this edge here. So to make my life a little bit easier, I am actually going to get rid of some of these polygroups. So, not polygroups, I'm going to actually make more polygroups. That's what I meant. There we go. That should do. All right. So we're going to separate things now. So I'm going to take this here, mask it out, and I'm going to choose Split Unmasked. Oh, no, we don't want that. That has that's splitting too much. So what we will do instead is we will go into our geometry palette here. We're going to go down to Modify Topology, and we're, oh, my apologies, I'm in completely the wrong place, folks. Sorry. It's in Subtool, Split, and we're going to choose Split Hidden. And what that will do is it's going to take that bottom part of the beak and split that off onto its own. We're going to go back and we're going to do the same thing with this section here as well, just temporarily at least. So we'll do, where are we? Split Hidden. And now we can join those together. You know what? Let's do a little bit of, there we go. Let's actually do some polygon stuff here in ZBrush. For any of you that aren't aware, a little dark for the new year. Not at all. Dark humor's fun. Okay, so we're going to take these two parts here, we're going to merge them down. Okay, so they're now going to become one object, and we can now polygroup that together. And if I go into the Z modeler here, I'm going to change the size of the brush. We can use the stitch function to bring that all together. And if you have never used ZModeler before and you're a little bit kind of wary with it, stick with it, okay? It is a little bit different than working in other programs and other software, but if you stick with it, I guarantee you it will be worth it, okay? It's really, really useful. It is really useful, and I was never a huge fan of it when it first came out because of the methodology around it. But let me see here. I need to. Right, we're going to have to hide this here, and we're going to have to make a new polygroup. So I can hide the polygroup like that. And then we can hit delete hidden. There we go. ZModeler is life. Learning ZModeler saved me having to jump into Blender. Exactly, that's the thing. You know, there is certain things that you may actually have to go into something like Blender or Maya to do. I know I do sometimes, simply just for speed, because I can still model things much faster in Maya than I can in pretty much anything else. So that's something that you may sometimes have to do, but you know, small things like this, yeah, it's great. You can go in and you can fully model out a character or a head very, very quickly. So, and yeah, and it means you don't actually have to jump between software. So it's very helpful. Now, running into an issue here because we don't have enough polygons. Okay, so we're going to have to add in some things. So I'm going to add in an edge loop here so that we can connect these two. Okay, there we go. Come on. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to just start that again. I'll use my mouse. There we go. Right, now that I've done that, I can add in an edge loop here and then connect these up. If you are having trouble grabbing individual points in ZModeler, just lower the size of your brush, okay, and it'll make things a lot easier to kind of grab. There we go. And what we'll do now is taking a look at the reference. I'm going to open the character's mouth a little bit once I've reduced the size of it. Just bring this in a little bit, like so. Yeah, that's going to come to about here. And I'm going to mask this out and grab my transpose line. Just open that. Oh crap, there we go. Try that again. There we go. Do you know what, actually? I'm going to change my mind. And instead, I am actually going to bring this together, like so. But I think I'm going to approach the connection a little bit differently. So we're going to go to this section here, the top of the head, go into geometry. We're going to go down to dynamic subdiv. I'm going to turn that on and I'm going to turn off smooth subdiv, but I'm going to increase the thickness. And let's see if I can show you this a little bit easier. So turn on the thickness, and you can see that what ZBrush is doing is it's adding a fake level of thickness to both sides of this mesh. But if I change the offset, it'll just push the thickness of the polygons in, like so. Perfect. Okay, and what this will let me do is I can just do a few changes to the beak. Just getting that shape in there. And again, folks, this isn't necessarily how I would always do this stage, but again, just a little bit different, just to give everybody options, because everybody likes to work in a slightly different way. All right. So now that we've got that, I'm going to keep the thickness on that, but I'm going to hit the apply button up here. So now that's no longer fake thickness, and now we can start working on the lower part. So I'm going to do the same thing again, do a little bit of a reshape, and probably bring this down like so. Maybe add an edge loop here so that I can move this up. There we go. Back to dynamic subdiv, turn off the smooth, add the thickness, and change the offset. So now I can actually start to alter some of the shape before we blend it all together, and we can start sculpting with it. So we'll dynamesh the top section first. Let's see how that's way too heavy. So we're going to lower that resolution. That looks about right. Mirror and weld. And same as we did before with the, in fact, I think we're going to speed this up a bit. We're going to go to deformation, and we're going to do polish by feature and a little bit of a relax. There we go. You can see already that we're starting to get that look of our Dodo. So we'll just start to add in a little bit of form here. They have, obviously, we've got, use the dam standard to start to add in some of the detailing. We could probably add a bit more of a dynamesh to it, but I think we can live with what we've got for the time being. And then there's got a nostril, so we'll use the standard brush for this. And then start to carve in the shape here. So this is obviously the kind of nostril cavity, if you will. This is obviously where the channel goes for it. And that's going to then take us up to the eye. And that's really something that you should be get used to doing, is that if you are kind of struggling with kind of sculpting something, you know, use other features on the face. You know, if you can't find reference for one particular part of a creature or a character, use the other elements that you can see. So for example, I can see that, you know, we can see very clearly here where the eye socket is, and then how that channel comes down from the eye socket and down towards where the nostril is. So, and you can use that to find other elements if needs be. Okay, so this part of the face is quite flat. And they've got some brows on them, I'll tell you that. They really do. Okay. So yeah, it's very helpful. It's a very helpful kind of tip to use when you're really struggling trying to find some reference, because not, you know, particularly something like this, I mean, there's not a lot of reference of dodos. Right, so looks like I've maybe messed up a little bit with the proportions here. Okay, that's more than enough for the time being. Let's get the lower jaw now into place. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, let's just have a look here. What do we need to sculpt? Yeah, I'm going to take my inflate brush and I'm going to thicken the back of the mesh. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think, have we adapted this one? We have not. Okay. So I need to hit apply so that the thickness that we've created here has already been automatically applied to the creature. Okay, what's this? Sorry. This year I want to challenge myself to make more things from scratch, and that means anatomy. I'm already ready to quit. Don't. That would be my best advice. Do not quit at anatomy. Keep going. I know it can be an absolute pain sometimes when things just don't, you know, stop making sense, but it's a very, very important part of being a sculptor, and it will be very, very useful for all sorts. Okay, animal anatomy, human anatomy, comparative anatomy, these are all things that are very important to kind of to learn about. Okay, all right, so I think what we're going to do here, just looking at the way this is kind of put together, we're going to pull this up further into the mouth so we get that nice overlap. And then I'm going to jump back to the upper part of the head and just add a bit of an inflate around the whole edge, like so. There we go. And then we're going to dynamesh the lower jaw. So let's go into geometry. Dynamesh. There we go. And that's too much, way too much. Okay, so let's drop it again. Perfect. Okay, mirror and weld. And we're going to again jump in really fast about this. We're going to do a polish by feature and then a relax. And then I can take my trim dynamic and I can start to get rid of some of these harder edges without removing any of the form. It's why I like approaching it this way, because what happens is when you start to have to clean up these kind of more faceted edges, you create a surface for your creature or your character that has a little bit, it looks less CG because it's a little bit more erratic, it's a bit more random, but it's still smooth, okay? And if you're not doing a stylized character, then this can be really helpful because it's already going to give you a base for sculpting your skin and your anatomy on top of it, okay? And that is going to help create a more realistic character, okay? Right. Oh, he's a bad looking bugger, isn't he? Sorry. Apologies. That's something my, there you go folks, that's something my granny would have said. Oh, he's a bad looking bugger. So, let's get a little bit more. So the eye looks quite small. So we will first thing we'll do is we're going to append a, yeah, let's append a sphere here. Let's see, let's just, and we'll scale that down, get it into place. How dare you? Let me just make sure that, yeah, that looks about right. It's got a really, the faces, they do have very strange, okay. So what I'm going to do here, folks, is I'm going to hold down Control, go into my masking mode, and I'm going to choose Mask Perfect Circle. And that's going to give me a circle, funnily enough. And that's going to allow me to mask it out, and I can soften it, invert it, soften it again. In fact, that's maybe a bit much. Let's, there we go. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my normal mask here, mask out the back, and I'm just going to go into my deformation. I'm going to choose Inflate Balloon. Actually, let's see if, yeah, actually, you know what? We'll use normal inflate, just a little bit, and then just soften, just kind of smooth out around the surface. I'm just going to add a little bit of a bulge. Not much, okay? A little bit of a corneal bulge, and for animals it's a little bit different than humans, so you've got to be very wary of that. So that just gives me a point to focus. So let's get this looking correct. There we go. Looks about right. And let's jump back to, whoa, didn't mean to do that. But what we will do is, you know what? We're going to, there we go. Making my life way more difficult than it needs to be here, folks. So we're going to just mask out the middle, invert it, and then we will grab our paintbrush and just and here's something that if you didn't know about this, if you hold down smooth, the shift key to activate smooth, turn off Z-add, you can smooth out any paint that you put on your character. Okay, so you can actually smooth the edges of your poly paint. And I'm then going to choose just a, looks a bit blue, there we go. And then there we go. Toy plastic shader, and just material, fill object. Switch everything back to our startup material. And there we go. Okay. Let's increase our interesting. There we go. Oh, there we go. I need to turn on my smooth. I accidentally turned it off. And I'm just very quickly filling in the cavity now that I'm more or less happy with where it is. And we really do need to kind of get something in there for the eye. So again, we're going to be kind of cheap about this. And I say cheap, it's actually quite a good way to work. So we're going to append a sphere, select it. We will immediately dynamesh it. Maybe a bit lower. Lower still. Perfect. Hold down Control and Shift, go into your selection options and choose Knife Curve, and we're just going to chop it in half, like so. And we're going to move this into the eye socket. So another way to do eyelids. So what we'll do here is we're just going to do a quick duplicate for that, and we'll just rotate it around, like so. Merge them down, and then Dynamesh them together with slightly higher resolution. There we go. Now we can start building up the rest of the flesh around the eye. And I'm just going to pull all this into place. And I'm going to do a quick Dynamesh. Oh, we don't want that. So what we'll do instead is if you ever get this happening, by the way, with your Dynamesh with holes, so what I would do is first go into your mesh integrity, hit fix mesh, then I would do a Z-remesh, okay? And remember, we can go back and hit Control to kind of save that history state. And when we move forward with this Z-remeshed version, can subdivide it, and then we can project it. So we can do a project history, say no, and there we go. I just delete everything and try again tomorrow. That is an option as well. Don't get me wrong, that is an option as well. Okay. So the eyes are way too big. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to merge these down like so, because I can always separate them if I need to. And then I'm going to bring that down. That's looking better. That's the thing, folks, as well. See, if you see me doing something completely like stupid like that, where the eyes are too big, fire it into the chat and be like, Pat, what are you doing? It looks nothing like it. Proportionally, it's a little bit off, I think. Yeah. So we're going to do the same with this. We're going to merge down. Okay. And okay, let's bring everything back. Wow, look how giant the head is that we made. So we're going to now, that seems to be in the right place, so we'll do a mirror. There we go. And then let's do let's make sure we've got symmetry off, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a remesh by union. And remember what I was saying, We just want to turn off symmetry before we do that, okay? Then we can hit accept. We'll do a quick close holes to fix any... Oh, we might be about to have a crash, folks. And I can't remember when I last saved. Oh, thank goodness. Bear with me, folks. We're just going to hit save. There we go. Like it ate another dodo. I missed whoever was following or the subscription. I apologize. I was stressed out about the fact that I thought this was going to completely crash on us. So with that now connected, I can go back and fix this bit. Oh, this could crash on us again, actually. Come on. Do as you're told. There we go. Bear with me, folks. I'm just doing a quick fix here. There we go. All right. We have avoided catastrophe, I hope. Now we're going to start just finishing up the beak. And start to get this kind of looking somewhat completed. I don't know what happened around the eye, but we appear to have fixed it, so that's fine. Okay, let's get everything combined together. So we'll do a quick merge down. And now we can start scaling the head. And this is something I've actually started to do a lot when I'm doing quick models and quick sketches, is rather than trying to properly combine anything or dynamesh it, I literally just merge everything down because I know that eventually I can separate it again because they're still separate objects. Nothing's been fused together yet, but it allows me to really quickly scale everything without having to worry about you know, using transpose master or anything like that. I think we have to get rid of this. I hate to say it, folks, but we're going to have to get rid of this version. And we'll do a quick bit of cleanup. With Sculptris Pro. And then we'll add in, where is it? Where's it gone? There it is. Okay. It is not perfect, but let me just have a... Yeah, there we go. We need to make a few small changes. There, we just kind of clean up the edge and a little bit of the face. Try and blend that in a little bit better. And that goes for both sides. So let's just grab our inflate brush here and we'll try and inflate that edge like so. And it looks as though as well I've got that wrong, the way that the neck is. It should be a bit further down. And we want this to come down like so. There we go. Yeah, that looks about right. There we go. Okay. So, what the hell is going on there? Okay. What the hell? It's the last thing you really want to have to say when you're sculpting in Zbrush. Like, what the hell is that? There we go. Do a quick mirror and weld on the body. Looks like he's wearing a hood. Literally looks like he's wearing a hood, which is kind of funny to me. Okay. I guess the last thing we really need to do then, folks, is try and give him some feathers. So let's do a save as. And I'm just going to do a quick proportional adjustment. Let me just mask out these wings here. The wings are bothering me, I'm not going to lie. They've been bothering me since I did them. So let's rotate those down, and I think it's mostly because I think they're too large, so I'm just going to scale them down. Yeah, that looks better already. So we'll do a little bit of adjustment. There we go. So the next thing that I want to do is use a brush that I've actually never used before. It's a new one I got, and it's by a user called Dragon Lisco on ArtStation. Okay, and I actually use the fur brush that they have created, which is fantastic, but I've never used their feather brush, so that's what I thought I would try out here. So when I click on it, what it's going to do is it's going to give me a bunch of VDM brushes. So these are everything you can see across the light box here. So let's say, for example, I wanted to put in some, let's grab trail feathers, okay? So now, let's see if symmetry's on. Great. What happens? We don't have enough subdivisions, so let's just subdivide one more time. Or, we turn on Sculptris Pro. It's not too bad. Let's subdivide instead. Just looking at the type of feathers this thing has. looks as though, what's this? Oh yeah, there we go. Excellent, so that'd be really good for this bit at the back, so we could start to see if there's a multiple. There we go. This is actually a really good brush. This is a really nice brush. No, that I shouldn't be surprised because the fur one is excellent. So yeah, so it's Dragon Lisco on ArtStation. So you'll see that I've worked from the back, and that's so that I can get a bit more of a natural overlap with the feather alpha. What I will do as well, folks, is I'll pop this brush in the Discord. Just gonna have to break symmetry here so that we can get this looking somewhat okay. Again, I'm going really fast here, folks. This is really just to get something out. And then let's try some of these other feathers. Oh, we've got, try these ones here. What does this do? Oh, those are quite cool, but not really what, yeah, it seems to be more this type of feather for the Dodo's neck. Not bad. Not a bad brush at all. It's really quite useful. Again, if you were kind of doing it a little bit better than I am right now, you know, taking your time and stuff, you can make a really good job of this. Cool. Okay, so what I would generally do is, once I do kind of a rough version of this with a brush, I would actually then start going over and smoothing it. Okay, because what it does is it starts to give me a better idea of where the final kind of feathers and stuff need to be kind of created and sculpted. And you could go in with more individual brushes or individual feathers like this and start to really build it up individually. And as we've looked at before, you could even use something like the snake, where is it? Snake hook. There it is. Yep, that's fine. And then with that, if we turn on an alpha, such as alpha 1, we can start pulling out the shapes that we need. It takes a lot longer to do it this way, but you will get a more custom look. And then once you've got the kind of main form brought out, then you can start going in and actually sculpting it. If my pressure sensitivity would actually come back. There we go. So then you could start actually going in and sculpting that out. But as you can imagine, that takes a very long time, which is great when you have artists out there that are spending a lot of time, a lot of hard work goes into making brushes like this, by the way. So that's why I would say, you know, I know it might be tempting to kind of find it free online, but you know, if you find a brush and you know that it's a really good brush, I would kind of recommend that you try and give the artists actually pay for it. You know, because the brushes that are really good in ZBrush, they don't just get made in a couple of minutes. It takes a lot of testing. Okay. All right, folks. So we've kind of went a bit nuts with the feathers. So I'm going to step back a bit and I'm just going to maybe leave it about there and smooth back some of this. And there we go. All right, folks. So it's not perfect. It's a little bit janky, but we have ourselves a Dodo. We've tried out a few different brushes. We've had a bit of a scare where we thought we were going to lose everything. I really did. I thought that was it. I thought we were going to lose a lot of work. And there we go. Okay, do a final save, and that brings us to very neatly to the end of our stream. So I want to thank everybody for coming along to this, the first stream for me for the new year. Please be sure to check out all the different socials for Firestorm Studios. Come and follow us on the Discord, follow us on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with everything that's going on with the studio. We will be continuing with our A to Z of sculpting in ZBrush next week. I'll be back at the same time. And yeah, until then, folks, take care, and I'll see you then. Thanks for coming along, folks, and I'll see you next week.